Chinese hotel burnt down, set ablaze by Jamaicans after denying access to the beach that was reserved for Chinese and white Jamaicans, or white people and Chinese people. Let me say that, even though out of many one people. Like, what if we like, the added them a play, the dark skinned ones? Who are you? And we not promote or support violence. But when they hear them violent act, them arsenia, it makes sense. We understand. I'm sure the whole diaspora, neighboring islands are proud of Jamaicans, like all the time. And one thing with Jamaicans, when you start to do too much, you go feel it. Remember what them tell you, from history? All of the bad slave them, or Jamaica them send them. So if you not think, say, some of us don't have our ancestors' blood running through our veins still, sad mistake. Nobody never tell you, Jamaicans, not frightened for nobody. No matter who. You hear that?
If this story is really real or fake, but in the event it is real, that's not the place to be racist. Jamaica's not the place to be racist. The gay people can't even freely live there, let alone a racist. Jamaica ain't some little island in Australia, okay? Out of all the nations, that's the most proudest of their culture. Me, myself, as a Jamaican, Jamaica is the most proudest type of people. Very prideful and humble. And for you to go there and be racist is like, you serious? And I can see a Jamaica now. What? Me can't get in? Me go burn your blood clot. Fire for that. Catch me by the beach, boy. Jamaica is not even the place to be gay, let alone racist. So whether this story is true or not, let it be a lesson learned that that's not the place to be.
So I see a video circulating that they burn a hotel in Jamaica to the ground because it only gives white and Chinese people access to the hotel, and a lot of Jamaicans are coming out and they're rejoicing about it. But my question to you is, why is it that Jamaicans are allowing this to happen in the first place? If this quote unquote hotel was burnt to the ground because it not access to no own stuff but have because of the ban in the country, why is it that this is happening? You understand me? Sometimes we as the poorer class are to be blamed, because if we were standing up and uniting another country, another people from other country, all that, me see some things that want, how come all of these people from all over the world are come take over Jamaica, and the poorer class people, the people that should have access to everything in Jamaica, just sit back and we wait until things get bad, till we have to burn and we have to demonstrate how we say it shouldn't be this way in the first place. Who is to be blamed? Because even if we say, all right, the Prime Minister, but how we vote them in? We are the one voting them in. Who are we voting in? Why are we voting in him? And why are we keeping them in? You understand me? So we not touch and a burn hotel. We not say nothing yet. If we not start, stand up for the right, do the right thing, and don't access other people from other country for coming our country and do whatever, however they want to do it. I understand no Jamaica.
The Chinese pretty much own Jamaica. I mean, the Jamaican government is giving them concessions, land concessions. They're building hotels, beach resorts. They're building 2 schools for the Japanese, for the Jamaicans. And what the Jamaicans have to give them in turn is the right to certain lands, the right to certain waterways. And if it doesn't stop, Jamaica, ironically, the land of Marcus Garvey and Bob Marley, will be the first Chinese colony in the Caribbean.
Wow.
It's getting bad. And you know why it's happening? Because the black bourgeoisie leadership in both Africa and the Caribbean, they don't have to live with the consequences of the economic decisions they make. So if I'm the president of Jamaica, okay, and China says, listen, we're going to give you $1 million in retirement. We're going to build you a retirement home, but we want this, this, and this. And you can loan as much money as you want. You can borrow as much money from the Bank of China as you want. I'm going to be set by the time I leave office. But what about my nation? Jamaica will be struggling for the next 50 and 75 years because of bad economic decisions from selfish leaders today. And that's the problem in Africa, and it's the problem in...
We want to talk about this, because this is the kind of ridiculous thing them ever say against Chinese people anyway them day. And I'm not true. Me read this one time in a somebody paper. Them say within 10 to 20 years of Chinese people come to Jamaica, over 10,000 half Chinese, half black picnic did there at Jamaica. 10,000 within 10 years. So you tell me say somebody will separate themselves from the population, get for somehow have 10,000 half Chinese, half black picnic. Separate themselves. You realize say Chinese people are some of the first people who make business we cater to black people. Business never cater to black people them time there. You see all of the so-called Jamaican people who are not Chinese, the white people, the brown people, them never have no whole heap of business that cater to black people. Them did separate. Them never do nothing for black people. Chinese are the first people in the Jamaica who make a business we cater to all the black people in all the island. But we separate ourselves, them say. Think about this next thing. Chinese people come to Jamaica, them barely know English. Them have a culture we completely different than Jamaican culture. You see, the world where we live in now, the world where we live in now, I want American world. Everybody have American culture. Everybody wear American clothes. Everybody know little English. Everybody do American music. So everybody in the world you have little bit in common. You see, now the world where Chinese Jamaican come, Chinese never have nothing in common with black people, with white people, with brown people. For them culture, you couldn't even understand how different it did be. And then come out one country where people hate them. Because the British were hate Chinese people from them time there. And them never like them none tall, and them start spread all kind of rumor about them. Say them nyam anything, and them nyam dog, and them nyam cat, and them nyam pig. Them nyam anything. Them dirty. And them spread all that disease them. And the British people them start all them thing there. So them come to one place where them different. Them come to one place where them never know the language. Them come to one place where nobody never really liked them and them couldn't understand them. So you could have understand, say, them would have different. And you see, Jamaican people, we go all around the world and we have community. And you know what people say? Oh, you don't want to separate yourself. But we not have that stereotype of follow it. But yet somehow Chinese people have this stereotype, and we feel like say we have to blame Chinese people, say them separate themselves. When we tell you say already, within 10 years, 10,000 half black, half Chinese picnic the day in the island. So how separate you can be when you have all them things there? And you still a cater to the black community. That's why I say when people say them thing about Chinese people, a stereotype, a racism. I mean, not care if our Chinese people say it, because sometimes we can take on the same racism and stereotype with them fling against we and take it on.
Jamaica would open my eyes to most of this shit anyways. As an adopted girl, I don't ever get told I look like anybody here. Something I always missed out on as a kid was like, you know, people growing up and then other people saying like, oh, you look like your mom, you look like your sister. Unless it was racist, no one was saying I look like my family. I have one adopted sister, but we don't look the same. Like, we're Asian, and people who say we look the same were literally racist. But what blew my mind was when I went to Jamaica. And all the people there, like I'm sitting with people in taxis, I'm sitting with taxi drivers, I'm sitting with Rastas. And they're saying, you look like my auntie, you look like my niece, you look like my cousin. Like, people don't get that the Chinese were crushed repeatedly by Western powers. We had to go around finding indentured work. So another part of that narrative of that, the Chinese, I'm not talking about all East Asians, okay? Because the Japanese and Korean people and how they disperse throughout the world is a completely different story than the Chinese. I'm talking about the Chinese. But the way that the Chinese people disperse is not because the Chinese are colonizers, but because they were getting colonized. That's why we ended up in similar places as Jamaica. Both the Chinese and Africans were brought to Jamaica. The Chinese not as great of numbers, and also not as, I don't know if they were exactly slaves or indentured servants, like if they were getting paid for it, I don't know. But that evolved to the Chinese in Jamaica opening their own grocery stores because they didn't want to work the fields anymore. Again, this ties back into the US making us into a sweatshop. We had an excess of cheap goods that we weren't going to get paid for selling to corporations, especially Western corporations, so the Chinese took those goods and sold them to neighborhoods that the West would either not sell to or price them out of selling to, you know what I'm saying? Like, the West thrives on keeping people poor, whereas China thrives on keeping people prosperous, and this is where I think really people get it wrong about our history. Because yeah, China is big, but it's had its own independence for less than 100 years, I believe. And during that, it's Opium Wars, British occupation, the West actively turning all of China into a sweatshop. And the places we ended up hating us too, you know? Trump keeps running his mouth on how he wants us out of Jamaica. But I've seen like every car that they drive there is Chinese. All of their technology in Jamaica, it actually literally has Chinese characters on it. We had very specifically the Chinese Exclusion Act, I don't know, you just start to recognize habits, patterns. US keeps making us poor, making it so we can only go to poor places, pushing us in, and then when these poor places start to develop and start to get stronger and start to, move forward, the US suddenly wants the Chinese out, huh? That's not to mention Jamaica and China are basically the same distance from the equator, so they have essentially the same vegetation as, I'd say southern China, which is where I'm from. And that's also where all of the Chinese migrants came from that are in Jamaica. They're mostly southern Chinese. But yeah, people really have to look into how deep our history goes together and maybe why we're being put against each other right now. It's not the first time this has happened either. Both of our communities are too smart and too numerous to deal with that type of manipulation anymore. That's all I'm saying. Anyway.
Jamaica isn't just arguing about China anymore. It's arguing about who really owns Jamaica. A hotel bans businesses are accused of racism. Jamaicans say they are being locked out of their own beaches. Others say Chinese Jamaicans have lived on the island for generations and are being unfairly blamed. So, what is this really about? Is it racism? Is it xenophobia? Or is this what happens when ordinary people feel like their country is slowly slipping out of their own hands? Watch this from Africa. This story feels strangely familiar. We've seen foreign investment promise prosperity before. We've also seen what happens when communities feel they carry all the cost while someone else collects the profit. Because this is not just Jamaica's story. It is becoming the story of the global south. Now, when people outside Jamaica hear this story, they'll probably reduce it to one headline: Jamaicans versus Chinese businesses. But that's far too simple. For me in Africa, I don't see a battle between black and Chinese people. I see a country wrestling with identity, sovereignty, and economic power. That's a very different conversation. Jamaica has one of the most beautiful national mottos in the world. Out of many, one people. It is a reminder that the island has been shaped by Africans, Indians, Chinese, Europeans, Syrians, Lebanese, and many others. Chinese Jamaicans are not newcomers in the historical sense. Many families trace their roots back generations to indentured laborers who arrived after slavery. They built shops, raised families, and many became part of the fabric of Jamaican society through business and intermarriage that we know today. That history matters. But history alone does not erase today's frustrations. Many Jamaicans now argue that some foreign owned businesses don't treat local workers fairly. don't reinvest enough in surrounding communities, or benefit from government deals that ordinary citizens never see. Whether every allegation is true is another question entirely. What matters is that these perceptions are shaping public anger, and perception often drives politics just as much as facts. Then there are the land concessions. Across Africa, we've watched governments exchange land, minerals, ports, or infrastructure deals with foreign investors. Sometimes those projects genuinely improve lives. Sometimes they leave citizens wondering whether national assets were traded away too cheaply. Jamaica now finds itself asking similar question. Number one, who benefits? Number two, who decides? Number three, who pays the price 50 years from now? That's bigger than one ethnicity. So here's where we need to be careful. When frustration builds, it's easy to blame everyone who looks like the perceived outsiders. But collective blame has a nasty habit of hurting innocent people while letting bad leaders escape accountability. If a business discriminates, investigate it. If labor laws are broken, enforce them. If corruption exists, expose it. But don't confuse accountability with ethnic blame. Otherwise, and I say this with a pure heart, ordinary families who have called Jamaica home for generations become targets for problems they didn't create in the first place. As Africans, we've lived through colonialism. We've seen divide and rule politics. We've watched powerful interests profit while ordinary people argue among themselves. That's why this moment deserves wisdom more than outrage. Because the real question isn't whether Jamaica will welcome investment. It's absolutely should. It absolutely should. Yeah, they should welcome investment from other people across the globe. The real question is whether investment serves the Jamaican people or whether the Jamaican people end up serving the investment. Those are two completely different futures. Jamaica has every right to demand respect, transparency, and fair treatment. At the same time, preserving the spirit of out of many one people means resisting the temptation to paint entire communities with the same brush. The strongest nations don't choose between openness and sovereignty. They insist on both. And maybe that's the lesson the rest of the African diaspora should take from this story. Because today's debate in Kingston could easily become tomorrow's debate in Nairobi, my hometown, my home city, maybe Lagos, maybe Accra, or anywhere people begin asking the same timeless question: who truly owns the future of our country? My name is the Bantu Merchant, ready to connect the diaspora to the motherland. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting. Let us catch up in the next one. Peace out, guys.